Hi Avish, how's it, my friend?
How you doing, Sid? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Just wanted to catch up on our previous discussion, and I know that we could have spoken a lot more, but I felt that it should be carried on. So, what's your feelings on the latest development still happening with the US?
You know, it's a story that you cannot keep your eyes off at the moment. It's something that's obviously attracted global attention because of the nature of it, and the cruelty that we all witnessed on the video. And I think the folks in the US are actually quite frustrated at the moment, and it's a sense of despair that these rights are still taking place. I think in general, if I have a look at these protests that are taking place, it's a lot of multiracial that are there. It's not just the black folks; it's the white folks and all the other races that make up the U.S. And I think people are actually getting fed up with the policing in the U.S. and actually losing faith in the policing because, I mean, the police are there to protect you, but uh, when a man gasps for his last breath, I can't help. I mean, I can't breathe, and he ends up calling his mother out, and there's something not right there. And uh, another issue that we gotta take into context here is the other three officers that were bystanders there, and they could have intervened, and probably George Floyd would have been breathing now, but they were complicit in this. So being complicit in this makes them obviously auxiliaries to the crime as well. So I think the frustration now with the protests and so forth, and I know it's really getting out of hand, especially during the late nights. And I saw something in Washington yesterday where they were like 300 meters away from the White House. So there was some fires that obviously took place there. And yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think those other three need to be charged as well because
Mm.
they were complicit in the whole event,
Yeah, I
and
remember I
they could
saw
have
that the
intervened at
last
any
time
moment.
actually.
But because they had so much of respect for the other officer, because he was a senior to them, so they just ignored it. But I just want to take you a little back a little further, and I saw a bit of a video yesterday. I saw it from another angle where the other two officers that were actually that we couldn't actually see in the video, they
Yeah,
obviously had their legs down on uh, George Floyd as well. So
yeah,
there was no way that he could move. So
yeah,
to me, this is murder. To me, this is
yeah.
murder. I'm not a prosecutor, but uh, people are not happy with third degree. They want first degree, yeah, and also on the top of that, they want the other three officers to also be
Then,
arrested.
but with third degree and first degree, I've never really understood these measures of punishment. Like, what happens in the first degree? Is it like death penalty, or what really happens?
Well, I would say with first degree, you're probably not going to see the light of day again. It's going to be quite a long sentence, and I think it's up to the defense. I mean, the up to the prosecutors are now to decide whether this warrants a death penalty, because death penalty would probably mean uh, that there was no remorse shown. And if you look at the video, sorry, man, uh, there was an element of no remorse. You know,
Yeah, I know my sister had told me about that, about the guys also doing what you just told me about them being on the side and having the legs on the guy. I was happy you had mentioned that because I was also told that as well. Hey,
yeah.
it's very bad. Like, if cops behave like this, what of normal you, what of citizens, eh? Cops are supposed to set an
Yeah, I mean,
example, but
I mean, I just feel this is 2020, and I think we've obviously gone through history, through the 60s, the 70s, and the civil rights movement, and the fight for equality. I mean, it's 2020, and we shouldn't have
hmm,
uh, this sort of incidents taking place, and this sort of brutality by the police, because there was once upon a time that police obviously thrived on brutality towards citizens, and it was obviously swept under the carpet in those days. Obviously, those were very different times. But I feel like the United States at the moment, especially the white America, there's obviously a sense of denial. There's
Yeah.
obviously a sense of denial as to whether racism exists or not, you know?
I wouldn't want to say denial, but
And
more
I
out of
think,
ignoring it, I guess.
well, I mean, ignoring is the same as the denial, because, I mean,
Oh
you're
yeah,
not really
sorry.
standing up for, you're not
Yeah,
really standing up for your
sorry,
folks. I mean,
sorry. I'm not really ignoring, but it's more like they know it, but they just don't give a damn. It's more like don't care attitude because they didn't go through it, so it's more like a self-entitlement thing. Don't know if that makes sense to you.
you guess that definitely makes sense to me, because if you look at the United States, if you had to go back to when it was obviously founded by a guy called George Washington, and it was built on exploitation. It was built on slavery, and then came the Civil War, and then obviously slavery was abolished. But I mean, you're looking at 2020, and African Americans have contributed so much to this economy of this nation, and
That's true.
I feel the thing is, it's not just racism within the police department; it's systematic racism, systemic racism. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about the work environment. We're talking about equal opportunities. Systemic racism and white supremacy needs to be burnt to the ground. Needs to be burnt to the ground, and it's up to the white folks. It's actually it takes a combined effort with the whites and black folks to bring this down, to burn this systematic racism, burn it to the ground. That's what needs to be done here. I would say that this is probably the last straw. You know, people have been ignoring it, but this is an eye opener for a lot of them now. You know, it's awakening the darkness that is in the air.
Man, it's funny because I mean, yeah, man. It's I don't want to be off topic, but before this incident happened, I was starting to think there was probably some hope for the US president, but now I think his hopes are really looking downhill from here because he didn't need this problem to be added in. I think you know what's funny, right? That before Corona came, I thought it was going to be a landslide for Trump because the economy was so great, but then Corona came and that kind of gave Biden half a chance. And now this situation has kind of made his chances even greater. So yeah, man, it's becoming very
Look,
depressing in that sense also.
look, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, the leadership from the White House has been nothing short of symbolic. We can talk about the COVID-19. We had a discussion about that, but I would say, as a leader of the country, I mean, you were supposed to make a public statement on this, but then you incited all sorts of other comments on Twitter. I mean, if you want to address the nation, you're addressing it on Twitter, and then you get your national security officer to address the news network on your behalf. I mean, you go silent on this, and this is an uprising that's obviously taking forward now. You know, in your country, it's an unrest. It's a social unrest. People are fed up. People are fed up with the way things are going. People are fed up with governance. People are fed up with the police. I mean, I would say even if we had to go back to normal, there would be no faith in the police anymore.
Yeah.
So there has to be something that needs to be. There has to be a total shift. You know, a thorough clean out. I mean, there was a guy yesterday. He's the national security advisor. By the name was Stephen O'Brien. I mean, he spoke ahead of. He spoke on behalf of the president about this issue about the systemic racism in within the police departments, and I think his obviously reply was like it's expected from a Republican sort of.
Yeah.
Respected from a Republican. I mean, he's his view on it was, I don't think there's systematic racism in the police department. It's just a few rotten apples that we need to obviously get out. And I think that was sort of Republican way of thinking and Republican way of talking, and it doesn't fare well for their chances in November. I think, honestly, this could be the death nail for the Republican Party.
Yeah. And even though, like, it's hard to, I don't know how to put it in context, because I don't remember such an incident ever happening during the Obama administration. Like, I mean, to Trump's credit, before all these incidents, he made the economy even better during Obama's time, but I think during Obama's time, there was less of these hangamas happening. That's me putting it in Hindi, but you know what I'm trying to say in a nutshell.
Yeah. Look, I think when we're talking about the Obama administration and with Biden as vice president and so forth, the economy obviously had its ups and downs, and it obviously took a turn for the worse. But I think that was obviously also compounded by the Bush administration before that, And okay, Donald Trump came in and he stabilized the economy. But I think from a leadership point of view, he's failed. He's failed the American people on both sides, because I mean, it's a sort of situation now where it's not just George Floyd. I mean, there's so many other names that have gone before. There's so many other lives that have been taken at the hands of the police. If I talk about Breonna Taylor, that 2 months ago, when she was shot in her apartment 8 times by police officers because she was obviously, they obviously thought that she was in possession of drugs. And then another guy by the name of Ahmaud Arbery, and he was a civilian, and he got shot by 2 white guys in a neighborhood, So, and you could go back to even the Obama administration, where there were these killings that were laid out by the police officers. And I think, in terms of the Constitution, I think the police have too much leverage over citizens. I mean, you needed a police department that has empathy for people, not the sort of brutality that you're going to get, where you are going to obviously torture the person to a point where, I mean, there is no way out for it. This is what we saw. We saw absolute torture on the screens. And I would love for more people, especially people of prominence, people that have that status, to speak out about this. Because this is a total injustice, and we can relate to this because, I mean, we come from an era where there was segregation, and maybe we probably didn't live through it, but we read about it, and I mean, it's not that people are gullible. They've also read about the civil rights movement in America.
And they've also watched the movie, the Mandela movie also.
Yeah. There's been a lot of movies about Madiba, and I think like, we talk about this rioting, but a great scholar, I mean, a great activist, Dr. Martin Luther King, he obviously said in 1967 that the rioting is a cause of the unheard. The rioting is the voice of the unheard. So it seems like the rioting is the only way where the minorities in America can be heard, because it seems like the minorities are not being heard anymore. As you say, it's something that was there. I mean, racism is there, but it's being ignored. It's been swept under the carpet, because, I mean, as long as you're in your 8 to 5 job, you're coming home, you're comfortable, you don't have to go through it. I mean, you got to put yourself in a person of color now. I mean, straight away, you are questioned by the police. I mean, you straight away, I think this is there's a way of, it's a sort of prejudice, and it's a sort of stereotype that has been built up by the police, that a person of color is classified as a criminal by the police department. That needs to change. I think that stink needs to be out of police department, and whoever is found guilty of that obviously needs, you cannot have someone on the force that has that sort of thinking and ideologies, because that is supremacist ideology, I feel, in my in my opinion. It's showing supremacy, in some way, which we don't need in the police force.
Yeah.
They're there to protect us.
Problem is, people are still living in the past. Just some people. It's like, fortunately, it's always the bad ones that will ruin it for the good ones. So it's like it's a difficult one to really fix because you can't change how people think. But I guess you can put more awareness out and educate and stuff like that.
Look, as I say, in order for this to change, you've got to have both parties coming together and burning this invisible virus. This burning this disease that is racism at the moment. That's turning this country upside down, and it's a total anarchy that's taking place at the moment. I mean, it's all been there, but there's been so many years of denial, but it had to come to this point. The death of George Floyd, it has to be a remembrance. His death has to count for something, his death has to count for something now. There has to be some sort of change that has to take place at a government level, at a state level, at a policing level. It has to change. I mean, we cannot have lives lost at the hands of the police. This is unjust. This is absolutely unjust.
Yeah, man. As they say in Hindi, we're living in Kali times, which for the person who doesn't understand Kali, it means bad. It's really.
Yeah. When I look at these times here and these times of unrest, and then you got the COVID-19 on the other part. You talk about Kali Yuga, right? And Kali Yuga is obviously the age of ignorance, and what causes racism? It's ignorance.
Yeah.
It's lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's all these things that we're talking about in Kali Yuga. It's
Yeah.
I mean, Kali Yuga has been manifested over the week. I mean,
yeah.
over the past since COVID-19, right up to George Floyd incident, right up to the riots. It's Kali Yuga in your face. That's what it is. I mean, it's ignoring the lessons of the past. I think if they obviously learned something from the past, people like Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks and John F. Kennedy, and those that stood up for righteousness and equality. It feels like the United States as a country, they've gone into this amnesia and so forth, amnesia of being in this bubble, this comfortable bubble, and you don't want to get out. You don't want to address the problems that are important, that need addressing, the burning questions, And I go back to a slogan, say Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and I like the quote that Joe Biden made the other day on live TV, and he said that all men are born equal, not only in creation but throughout life. All men are born equal, not only in creation but throughout life. Yeah. I watched that clip on CNN the other day. He just gave a small clip, and I think Biden has been so vocal during this time, and it's a sort of complete opposite to Trump, where he's been away from all this. He's just hidden himself. And I believe yesterday, when the protests were taking place in Washington, I don't blame people. I don't blame people going to the White House where they want to see him. They want to see him make a statement, which didn't happen. And what happened was they obviously put him in a bunker.
Yeah.
They put him in a bunker below to protect him.
I saw it this morning, actually.
I mean, so they put him in a bunker and they kept him away from the crowd. So he's got advisors now that talk on behalf of him. But 3-4 weeks ago, and he was doing all the talking when it came to hydroxychloroquine and remdesivir. But he's like non-existent now for some reason. He's non-existent.
Yeah, I think the people have probably advised him not to talk because it just seems to inflame people's reactions. But then also, it's kind of sad because America is a first world country, right? And this shouldn't be happening in a first world country. Not that I'm saying it should be happening in any other countries, but you would normally expect these problems more in third world countries, mainly because they're not as, I don't know how to describe it, but for a first world country, this is really not accept. This is really, I don't know. I got no words to say.
I agree with your sentiments there, and I was thinking about the same thing the other day. I would think a country like a stature of the United States and
UK
the economic power that it is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to have these disparities across races, it's not right. I mean, everybody should be on even par in terms of you know, healthcare, economics. You know, everybody should be on an even par when it comes to standard of living. But you don't see it. There's such a disparity. There is such a disparity in the United States that's actually shocking for a first world country. I mean, after this, I mean, I can't even consider them a first world country, to be honest with you. I would consider a country like Germany or Russia to be more first world, because with Germany, there's a lot of the citizens are they in terms of standard of living, their standard of living is not too far apart, you know. But if you look at the United States, there's such a disparity from very rich to very poor. There's such a disparity that's taking place, and I think they've ignored that for too long.
Actually. I thought that was with India. Actually, we have the very rich and very poor.
I mean, in terms of distribution of wealth, in the States, you know,
Really?
when I'm talking about different neighborhoods, you know. Okay, if we had to bring this up in terms of race, in terms of there's a disparity in terms of race in the United States at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So that's obviously the thing I'm trying to bring up, you know. And as we're saying, they're being in this denial because there are certain citizens that have come up from a time of privilege, and there's certain citizens that have to work to get to where they are. That's what it all boils down to.
Yeah, man. I wish I knew what to say, because I'm still in shock with all these incidents. So I don't know where to go from here. I mean, not just for America, but just in general. I thought it couldn't be any worse in terms of Corona, but I think the U.S. situations are bringing back dark memories from the past.
Yeah, it's a sort of past that we don't want to go back to, but it's like it's a scene out of the movie. That's how I see it at the moment. It's a scene out of the movie. It's like the 60s all over again. It's like the 70s all over again. It's that social unrest that we're seeing all over the United States. And I'm sorry, and I will repeat this. This is 2020. We should be past these problems. We should not be having these sort of problems at government level. We should not be having these problems. The thing is, as a country, how do you tackle a topic like racism? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, is it all over the billboards? Are people really getting educated? Is there integration in schools? Is there integration in the workplace? Are certain jobs classified for white? Are certain jobs classified for black? That's the problem that we have here. It's not just George Floyd, but George Floyd has been the pillar to which we can see some change. George Floyd is the pillar which we can see some change. You know, it's come down to this, and it's going to reach boiling point if, especially the family doesn't get the justice that they want. You know, the desired results. Because I don't think this rioting is going to stop anytime soon. Because a lot of citizens at the moment, a lot of folks, I mean, they want those other 3 officers to be arrested as well, you know, and charged with accessories to the murder, which is what we saw it to be, you know. So they want the charges reversed on Derek Chauvin. They don't want a 3rd degree; they want 1st degree, because it was so brutal, and it was so there was so much of there was such an element of cruelty that went into this, you know. You know, it's like it's what you call premeditated in a way, but I don't know if he had that in intention. So
Yeah.
It's up to the prosecutors to decide that. But I would think that the family doesn't want this to end very nicely. You know, if they want this,
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
pretty
the
they
whole
don't
of
have the death
America wants.
penalty.
Well, it's up to the prosecutor now to decide that. You know.
But they don't have it in America.
Uh,
Problem.
well, they do have it in certain states. I
Oh,
think. I believe.
okay.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think they do. But
But
I
then,
would think a lengthy sentence is. I would think a lengthy sentence is as good as a death penalty in this instance. You know, life without parole. I was thinking along those lines. Life without parole would probably set an example to other policemen that if you do cross the line, you are going to face the full wrath of the law, which is a warning to all other policemen. Because if
I
they
don't
do
know.
step
I
the
just
line,
feel, I just feel death penalty could be quite hectic, but probably for the best. But then it'll mean that the president might have to come up with that rule to be come back to be brought back in, just to try and make the people much more at ease. Because even if you have first degree in life with parole, I don't know if it'll really. I guess it could help, but I have my doubts.
look, obviously, if we can't get death row here, then we'd probably have to settle with life without parole, which
Hmm.
is bad enough. I mean, that would really set an example. But the thing is, what of those other three officers? I mean, they've also got to be, they've also got to share the blame here as well. And I think the other two that obviously were that we viewed on the other angle of the video. I mean, they obviously need to be charged with accessories to the murder, and obviously the one bystander as well that we saw in the photo. Uh, they all need to be charged. So I don't see the riots stopping. I don't see it stopping anytime soon until those other three are charged. And I don't see any change until systemic racism has been burnt to the ground, which can only happen once this trial has played out it's played out its time, and we've got the convictions. Then we can talk about burning out systemic racism in society once
Yeah.
and for all. So everybody would have an equal opportunity, and policemen would not be stereotyped as we see at the moment.
But I think, how do I say this? But I think on a final note, I think that because elections are coming around the corner, I think Trump will have to
Yeah,
do something really drastic to fix up this mess. Because at the moment, if it doesn't get fixed up in a way that he brings up some good, positive, bold changes, I think it's really looking like it could be an unexpected win for Biden, who I know you like.
yeah. At the moment, if you look at the cards, I mean, all the cards are with Biden at the moment. You know, with everything that's going on, all the cards are with Biden. So uh, it would be some miraculous change of events if Donald Trump is reelected. I mean, I'm not jinxing this by any chance, but I think all the cards are with Biden at the moment, and you know, irrespective of his age and so forth, but he's been with Obama administration for 8 years, and he understands the situation that the country is in at the moment, and I think he can bring some positive change to the system that really needs some flushing out as well. You know,
Okay, I think you want to add anything further, or you'll end it for today.
I think we can have a discussion on the elections in the next panel.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, Avish.
Thanks for having me, Sid. You keep well.